Okay, so I'm fitting that interior piece that's going to be the inside cockpit, but it's checking, fits great. So now the next part is to add the skin. So there's the skin that's the outside that goes on around the cockpit. And they're all done the same, so I'll show people how to do this. Now that tab I'm playing with is going to help us when we roll this thing to glue it together. So the what you do basically is you roll these things around and you get them into a nice shape, and then you add them to, or you add formers into them. I find that instead of doing it the other way around, you make your paper first, and you assume that your paper is correct. And if your paper is correct, then you kind of cut your formers to that. Having said that, all these Merrick designs, it seems to me, I'm just about perfect if I cut right on the line on the formers, which is really nice. So I'm putting a little bit of glue on one side of that tab. That's going to end up giving us a nice lip to glue to and hold everything together. And I just set it down on the desk there, and you just line it up so that it's even on both sides and it's right down the middle, and you just press it down and let it dry. And this glue, again, it's not super glue, but it dries pretty fast. It's amazing. But once that's dry, you'll see how we end up now forming this and actually gluing it together, and how it will end up going around that whole cockpit interior. So once that's nice and dry, we're going to end up forming it. And again, you form things first as best you can. You don't try to force things. You get them close. And so I'm getting this nice big brush handle, and I'm rolling it. And again, I'm using a fair amount of pressure when I roll. And you can see the paper immediately starts to behave, and it starts to do what you want it to do. You make sure you roll it to the very end so that you can get a little curl on even the very edges. And you just have to be careful that what you're using doesn't have any bumps or things in it, because you will damage the paper. But you keep rolling this around several times, and lo and behold, you get to a point where it's very easy to just snap those two pieces together like so. And it's very, very easy to do at this point. It fits right in there. You practice fit a bunch of times, you add your glue, and now you go ahead and put this piece on. In this case, I also made sure I had the very edge glued. Don't know if that matters that much, but this worked really well for the whole fuselage. And again, all of the skins that you're going to see later are all done the same way. So this is a good one, and why I'm trying to go through it in a little bit of detail here. Anyway, you line these guys up, and invariably once you put glue on, things don't work as well as when you dry fit them. But in this case, it worked very well. You just got to make sure you don't want anything to be crooked. And I got my index finger inside there and my thumb, and I'm pushing them down. And once you get it started, then you can give it a good squeeze all the way down, and you're just trying to make sure you don't move it, but you make sure it's nice and perfect. Once it dries, you can fit that piece in. And now the rest of this video is painful, but basically it's showing trying to get this thing to fit. So for example, these got to fit right snug flush against each other so the paper can't overlap out the back. And then notice that black piece has to come together and fit. And I decided, I know what I'll do. I will stick that piece and glue it inside. So I'm lining up the cockpit edge, and the thing is so well engineered by Merrick that if you cut that, it fits absolutely perfectly inside there. No overlaps, no nothing. And so what I end up doing is actually putting that in there and gluing it. Now, I don't know if I should have done that before I rolled the round piece, but probably. But in my case, what I did was added this thing afterwards. So I put a little bit of glue just to get it tacky and get it started on places where I know, and since I've test fitted, I know if I line it up on one side, it'll be lined up on the other. So you slide that in there, and you just kind of got to be careful, because if you do tap it too hard, it will glue. And then you got to pull it apart. And once you try to pull it apart, things go all awry pretty fast. But anyway, making sure that's correct, which it is. My gun holes are lined up pretty well. End up trimming those a little bit if they're funny. That doesn't matter. And now I just roll it around and got all the other parts cut, glued. And so I'm just showing you here on one part, I just am gluing it a little bit on that side. Now because it's all rolled already and fitted, you don't need a lot of glue in there really. It's just there to give the impression. So if you glue it in several spots, you don't need to completely tack it down everywhere. I clean out those holes a little bit because they're not going to line up absolutely perfectly, but it's amazing how close they were. And likely that's a cutting error by me. It's not from the actual design. But there it is in, and now, and you can see there's a little bit of white edge on the front and the back. That's because that's where the little former is going to fit. So a lot of this is just dinking around with your fingers and making sure you fold it, mold it right. There I'm coloring the inside of where the machine guns are going to go, just to make sure nothing shows. And now you test fit this. And this took me, gosh, maybe half hour, 45 minutes of test fitting, just to make sure that it all fits. So for example, again, you put it in and it's supposed to fit just presser fit. Just slide it on, no gaps, nothing. Should be absolutely lovely. And you can see that it's a little tight up there in the front. I'm trying to force it in, but trying not to break anything, of course. That's why the beauty of balsa. I love the balsa because it's much stronger and everything. So I just keep testing back and forth. And again, this is laborious. But like, for example, I'm sanding that little piece, trying to make it fit just a little bit easier because it's a little tight fit. And literally, that's how much I put on there. I mean, I edited and cut some off, but you don't take much, just a little bit at a time. A few strokes of the sander is all you need. And you keep doing this. And again, I found that cutting his formers on the line works out almost perfectly every time. A couple of the other skins I put on, I didn't even have to sand. So now I'm trying to get the rear one to fit. I'm trying to get that cockpit little back edge to slide together. And there it is. And it works beautifully. No worries. I'm excited.